right, good morning. Welcome to Enzion, your nonprofit community cinema. My name is Jeff Sperry. I have the privilege of being Director of Development here at Enzion and for the Florida Film Festival, and it's my pleasure on behalf of our board, staff, and everybody involved with the festival to welcome you to the 21st Annual Florida Film Festival. We also want to take a moment to welcome our live streaming viewers who are watching today on floridafilmfestival.com, the Women in Film Florida site, that's womeninfilmfl.org, as well as Orlando Live's website. Orlando Live is providing the live streaming today, and that is at orlandolivestreaming.com. We also, of course, want to thank our primary sponsor, Full Sail University. They've been with us for 15 years, and we're delighted to have Full Sail aboard with us again. Thank you so much for Full Sail.
Don't forget, you have to sign in.
We have a Full Sail representative on the panel today, and we'll have her introduced momentarily. We also want to thank you, our audience, for your support of our mission to bring the best independent and foreign films to Central Florida year-round. As you know, Enzion is a nonprofit organization, and we're here for you year-round. And our annual campaign is currently underway. Please support the arts in Central Florida through United Arts and designate your donation to Enzion. Your donation is completely tax-deductible, and if it's received by April 30th, United Arts of Central Florida will provide a 15% match to that gift. So your gift actually will increase by 15% before April 30th. So thank you in advance for your support. You can find pledge forms anywhere you can buy tickets or in the Enzion lobby, or if you're seated at a table right now, there are pledge forms located in those table tents right in front of you. Those of you watching online can go to enzion.org and find the donation link there. And again, thank you in advance for your support. Those of you who are here at the festival also will be finding surveys throughout the festival, and we'd like you to respond to those. They are courtesy of United Arts or help us with United Arts. They're essential as we compete for important grant funding throughout the year. So have someone in your party complete a survey at some point during the festival, and we'd certainly appreciate that information as well. Now, I'm also privileged and honored to thank and express our appreciation to our sponsor for this particular forum, and that is the organization Women in Film and Television Florida. And I'm very pleased to introduce my personal friend and our good friend here at Enzion, who is with Women in Film Television Florida, Shannah Fowler.
Hi, everybody. Thank you all for coming out today. We have a really incredible panel. I was fortunate enough to have breakfast with all these wonderful women this morning and got to learn a little bit about all of their individual stories, as you're about to hear. This is an important panel because we have been making strides as females in this industry. And, you know, even though it may have evened out a little bit, these women have incredible stories about their journey, what got them to the point where they've been successful, what they've learned along the way, and they're going to share some of those tips and secrets as well. While you're here, please do check out womeninfilmfl.org. We are a fantastic organization. Women in Film is an international organization. So what's fantastic about joining your local chapter, whether it's Florida, New York, LA, you're now part of this international network. And when you transfer to another organization, you're able to call, you know, let's say you're going to France. You can call the Women in Film chapter in France, and now you have a network of people who are here to support you and help make your dreams come true in this industry. So I urge you to visit it and like us on Facebook. We are streaming live from our website as well, thanks to Orlando Live and the Florida Film Festival. But if you're here locally in the state of Florida, once you get in contact with us through womeninfilmfl.org, we're happy to set you up and introduce you to some of our networking events, our educational panels like this one today, and get you set up so that you can start networking with the people in your community. It's not only females. We do have male membership, about 30% male membership. So we like to support the local production in the state and make sure that we're keeping jobs in the state of Florida and we can keep our production community strong. So you're in for a treat today, and enjoy. I'll see you afterwards if you have any questions.
Thank you very much, Shannah. And just before I introduce the moderator, I do want to thank all of you again for attending and remind you to please turn off your cell phones and other electronic devices. We'll have opportunities for questions as we go through, and we certainly hope you enjoy the panel. And our panelists will be introduced momentarily, but I have the privilege of introducing our moderator today, a friend of Enzian for many years and a renowned filmmaker in her own right, an Emmy Award winner, and we're proud to say a Central Floridian, a local resident, and a good friend of ours. Please welcome Sylvia Caminer.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. First off, just wanted to say thanks back to the Florida Film Festival and the Enzian for programming this and a few other panels. They're so important to festivals. And I also want to welcome all of the guests, everyone here. I'd like you all to be involved. We've been talking a little bit at breakfast, and we'd really like this to feel like a conversation. So even if you have a comment and I'm not asking for questions, please go ahead and put your hand up, and we'd love to bring you into this conversation. You know, we don't have everything figured out, so we'd love to just, make this a real conversation. I'm going to, rather than kind of butcher the job, I'm going to let each of the panelists discuss, a little bit about themselves and just introduce yourselves.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here again. I was here twice before with shorts, and I've been a film editor in independent films for almost 20 years, working mostly in the US, also in Europe a little bit. And I work with Rebecca Miller. I've cut her last 3 features, Personal Velocity, The Ballad of Jack and Rose, and The Private Lives of Pippa Lee, as well as we just finished Rodney Evans' new film, The Happy Sad. We did Brother to Brother previously. I have also edited documentaries where mostly I'm consulting these days. I'm not editing anymore, but I have a big love for documentary films, and we premiered actually Ferry Tales, Katja Esson's award-winning film here at the Florida Film Festival. So, yeah. Okay.
Hi, I'm Shannah Laumeister, and I actually started out in this business as an actress, and I moved on to write. And after writing, I directed, so I'll go to that part. I directed 2 shorts. My last short was with John Savage and Guillermo Diaz and Brianna Brown, and that did very well. My first one was kind of like whatever. I think it's still in the closet somewhere. And then I did this documentary called Bert Stern Original Madman that is here at the festival now. And thank you. Thank you. And whoever didn't see it, it's playing at 3:30 today at the Regal Theater. Can I get that in? And I'm thrilled to be here, so thank you, and onward.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Ann Waters, and I'm actually the program director for the film school at Full Sail. My background is I come from Los Angeles, and I was a development director for 2 years with a company that had a 2-picture deal with MGM until they got sold to Sony. And after that, I kind of went into the documentary television realm, and it was about the time when reality television was coming into play, so it was kind of a segue into that, and I ended up spending the last 12 to 15 years producing, writing, and directing for reality television, and I worked on shows like The Bachelor and Dancing with the Stars. I'm a little bit of an anomaly up here because I come from the TV realm, but my first love has always been film, and I just made my living in television, that's what I say. So that's pretty much it.
My name is Lauren Wolkstein. It's such an honor to be amongst so much amazing women and talent. I am beginning in the industry, I guess. I've made 2 shorts that have played at the Florida Film Festival. 2 years ago, I had a short called Cigarette Candy, and last year I had a short called The Strange Ones that premiered at Sundance. And I just graduated from film school 2 years ago, so I'm about ready to shoot my first feature. That's kind of where I am. I went to Columbia Film School in New York, and I'm based in New York.
Great. All right. Well, there you have it. So we have a nice variety of people with different sets of skills and talents. And, I think the best way to start a conversation or a debate like this is really why. Why is it that women have to persevere, and do they have to persevere harder than men? There is a study, and I'll tell you the numbers. In 2011, women comprised 18% of all the top positions in film, whether it be director, executive producer, writer, cinematographer, or editor, in the top 250 grossing films put out in 2011. What are your opinions? Why is it that we're still kind of at this lower percentage? I think we've stayed pretty constant at, I think it was 16% maybe a couple years earlier, but we're at that 16 to 18%.
Well, we're growing.
Ever slowly.
I don't know if I can answer that question, but I can say that it seems that women are coming up in the business. I was telling them earlier in breakfast that as far as I've been at several festivals with my film, and it seems like I don't have any statistics on this, but in the end, I've been a lot of women are at these festivals, so I don't know if there's more doing independence, and I don't know if it has to do with power and salaries, or I mean, I did what I wanted because I wanted to do it, and I don't remember too many blocks, nor do I remember too many blocks specifically by men. So that's.
Although just an obvious one, I mean, the role division in terms of if you want to be a successful woman in the industry and you have a family / kids, you do need either a very supportive partner or you need a lot of money for the help.
That's true.
I'm a
That's
single
true.
mom, and it costs me a lot of money to get childcare if I work a 12-hour day job. So that's just a big obstacle to work in. And I tend to not mention that when I go in an interview because I have seen people get jobs over not having family to look after. So, which I find absurd because I feel having a family makes you a human being that can very well relate to the issues we're talking about in films, and it shouldn't be a hindrance. But the reality is it is harder. You know?
I think men perhaps, and not just men, I mean, as a producer on fiction films, I might have a greater concern if I know, someone on the crew who we would be lost for the day because they had a very small child. Because if an emergency comes up, of course they have to go. As a woman, I would say you have to go.
Yeah.
But that I don't think should take away, because as you say, it rounds the person.
And that said, I mean, there is opportunities to work with female producers, not that just female, sorry, but there is plenty of opportunities to integrate that and find solutions around it. And I believe, it shouldn't be a hindrance.
Right. Lauren, is this something that you're thinking about? I know you said, you're breaking into
have a
feature.
family?
That too, but no, I mean the thought of being a woman who's now trying to go into the feature realm. What's your thought?
I haven't really thought of it in terms of gender being an issue. I think it's a struggle just to make films in general, and I think in the independent film world, which I'm very, very much a part of, being in New York, you just go out there and persevere and make your films and make them happen, and just don't stop. And I think I haven't really thought about male versus female, where we are in the industry. I'm like, I gotta make my movie, and that's how, any way possible. So I don't see it yet.
Okay.
I also have managers that are both female that have been very supportive, so
Okay.
I think that helps.
And Anne, I know you come from production as well, but if you can talk a little about education, because I think the numbers show that more women are actually graduating from college nowadays and actually get better grades. Maybe because the feeling is we have to persevere, so it actually helps us to become stronger and kind of individuate a bit more. We make ourselves stronger. So if you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, we have quite a few female students, and the numbers are almost 50-50, I think, for the students. But when I went to film school at USC back, in 2000, so that's 12 years ago, it was 70% male, 30% female. But all of those women that I've kept in touch with, that I went to film school with, they're still all in the industry. And I think I kind of agree with Lauren that it's just a really hard industry to break into for anybody. And the numbers, I think in education, there's a lot of people going into it, but whether they get out of school and then are able to apply it, I think that just depends on, I don't think that has anything to do with their sex.
Okay. And what about the thought, the statistics are based on the 250 top grossing films. Maybe women aren't that interested, frankly, in making popcorn movies, tentpole movies. A lot of the more character-driven, message-oriented films are not necessarily in this 250 top grossing films of all time. What do you guys think about that? Any thoughts?
Well, the 10 films here at the festival are all directed by men, so I mean, yeah. And also
In fiction, I can say for certain that that's not true for the documentaries.
and just in terms of the editing statistics, I think, what was it, 14% versus 10% in 2010 are female editors. I mean, that is
Right.
not a good number.
No.
You know?
No,
And that's actually traditionally always been sort of
Yeah.
female predominant editing.
You would think.
I mean, I think it's, of the areas, it seems to be the one that's mostly open for women. in some way.
However, 14% is not a big
No,
number.
it's not. That's
No,
crazy.
it's not. And then, you know, it's funny because the statistics, and I know one of you were talking about independent films, and that same percentage of women in those top positions does actually go up if you look at the top US festivals, then it goes to 24%. So that's 1 in 4. So that shows kind of an independent. And then they do kind of say a bit of that's because of documentaries. I think women are really leading kind of the field as far as what they're doing the most of is documentaries. So what do you think about that, Shannah? I mean,
I didn't know that. That's
Yeah.
great news. Well, I'll comment on that. I think that I don't per se have an interest in doing formulaic high concept movies, because if I had to do that, I kind of wonder why would I want to be in the business if I was depending on a studio and 80 people to sign off on every decision I made. So it doesn't appeal to me on that level, you know? So I really am attracted. Like, I'd love to do studio films and get a great paycheck. Yeah, absolutely, you know, but do I want to, like, be the top 5% and have, like, no control and be doing something for purely commercialism? No, I mean, that's not why I started this business. That's not why I'm in it. That's not what I want to do. So, I mean, you know, if you're speaking to that part of it, that could be, you know, more of a woman's instinct, a woman's, you know, emotions or whatever we are that makes us, you know, more dynamic. Are we more dynamic than men? Not all of them, right? There's some very dynamic men, trust me. I've met them, but so you know, possibly that is so, that we, you know, women are more. If you know, if you're saying that the statistics are higher in the independent and the documentary world, how high are they in the documentary world? Curious.
well, it's 20. They haven't. I don't have a specific doc world, but 24% of films in top film festivals in the U.S. 24% of those big positions are women. So it's up
Okay.
by almost 10%.
Yeah,
Not
so
quite.
that's,
It's a little more.
well, that's great.
I also think we really got to focus on creating alliances regardless of gender, of really collaborating as filmmakers, as independent filmmakers, because I think the hurdle is much harder in terms of the industry being driven by formulaic principles that sell, that we know that sell, and that's how the money goes. And instead, we got to create a forum for new ideas and new alliances that are, you know, gender.
I think that's one of the biggest
Trend.
reasons for festivals, and festivals like this where filmmakers can form relationships and friendships. And I just wanted to throw out one thing is, I find it kind of interesting that the very first director to ever win an Oscar, Kathryn Bigelow, was for a very male-driven film. I mean, you would have guessed that film was directed by a male. I mean, it's that type of formulaic. It was a well-directed film. I'm not putting the film down, but it had that very masculine.
I thought it was very feminine. I disagree.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, in what way?
I thought it was very emotional. You know, I'm not a war movie buff. I don't normally like war movies. I saw that movie and I was pulled in emotionally in a way I'd never been pulled in, and I thought it was excellent. I was blown away by it. I stood for it. I wanted it to win. I was thrilled it did. That's my opinion. And I just felt like it was amazing for me to be able to emotionally experience what men go through on the battlefield, and I felt for them, you know, and I don't remember really watching any war films that I felt that. Maybe, you know, I've grown and I could go back and watch old war films and have that experience, but so why I loved it is I thought it was a great meeting of masculinity and femininity, and that collaboration, and I think that's why it was worthy of winning, because if, you know, that's what it takes for a woman to break out, being the first female who ever won an Academy Award for Best Director ever. I mean, honestly, that's, you know, then that's what it takes. So, so that was my thought on it.
She's an interest. That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
Yeah, it's more the genre that's male, maybe I should have said.
And it is still very difficult to see big Hollywood features which have female protagonists in unusual situations. I mean, there's not enough, as similar enough.
The Hunger Games.
Protagonists.
Which is written by a woman. It is about war.
Dragon.
as
No,
well.
directed by a man who's
I have
not
to go
directing
see
the
it.
second one.
Yeah, but it was written by a woman, and it's about war. So
Right,
Yeah.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
Is that okay? So now, just thinking about the different positions, I know Sabine being an editor, I would think that, there are certain positions that you think are a little bit more open to women, and I would have thought editing, I know we talked about it a little bit, but what do you think it is that kind of drew you to want to be an editor?
Oh, I always love to say how, to me, I was doing many different things, and I was doing theater, I was doing visual arts and photography, and when I discovered editing, it was magical that all my different interests in language and music, philosophy came together in one craft that I can keep exploring for the rest of my life and keep learning in. And I think that's really a key to the idea of perseverance, is to stay open and stay interested in what's going on, not just in your very own field, but also what's going on in the rest of the world. That's why I love to come to festivals and see films I hadn't heard of before, or go to conferences and learn about issues. And I feel, in terms of editing, yes, it is. The process is nursing what is almost like a child to its full form, and it's the last stage of writing, which makes it very satisfying because you actually see the end of it versus writing the very first draft where a lot of things can change.
Very true.
Yeah.
And what about the rest of you? Sean, if you want to go next, just what is it? Obviously, this is a tough world. It's hard to make a living in this field. And not always. I mean, maybe as an actress, it was probably maybe the jobs
It's
were a little-
harder.
Okay. What is it that drives the rest of you to just say, this is it? This is what I have to do?
Well, I think it's a great question. I feel like I never had a choice in the matter, honestly. And when I wanted to do my first short, I was doing it and nothing was stopping me, and it was just like 100%, and I went after it with that kind of velocity, and I got it done. And when I wanted to do my second feature, I did that too, and to the point where the producer threw me out of the editing room, and it was like a $20,000 movie, and I sued him, and he was in shock. How dare you? How could you? And everyone said, what are you doing? It's $20,000. It's not worth your time. And I said, well, it's worth me being able to sleep at night, because I can't sleep at night because this guy stole my baby, So I went and sued him and got the whole film back and sat at an editing room, traded my car, for editing services, and got it done, So it's just, and when I started this documentary, I had that same kind of commitment and will, and if I look back on it now, it feels like a miracle, but it's not. You can't ever look at it like that. You have to look at, I think that I was responsible for it, and I made it happen, and I can do it again because it couldn't have happened without me. And so, I think that it's just, combination of passion and will and desire. And if you have those three things lined up, that nothing can stop you. And I think that's not gender-based, by the way. So I just want to point that out.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It's all about passion for the project and not letting anything stop you. And what's really important too is having that team behind you to support you, because it is such a and it's not a solitary art. It's something that you need all these other people to create this team and to have this collaborative energy and this creative energy around you. And it feels like a family to make films. And I think that's really important, to find that family and to find that network and to find people that will be with you while you make these films and struggle to make them and sell your car and all those things.
Trade your car.
Trade your car.
For editing services.
All those things that we sacrifice to make movies, I wouldn't imagine doing it any other way. I left, I was in computer science before, and I can't imagine going back to computer programming after making films. I love it. I need to tell stories, and if you need to tell stories, then that's what you have to do. If you can think of anything else that you want to do, then do that, because it's such a hard industry, and you will find it's all about perseverance. But if you feel like the need that you have to tell a story and you need to get it out there, then you'll get it done. And then it's for you, and you'll know that.
Anne, did you have anything else?
Yeah, I just totally agree, because I think you have to be committed 100%. I mean, I think if there's even a little doubt, or if there's anything else or any kind of self-doubt even about your ability and your drive to do it, it will stop you cold. Like, you have to give it 100%. Otherwise, there's too many obstacles, too many things that stand in our way to stop working, to stop the film from getting made, or whatever the issue is. And you have to be a bulldog. You just have to push through it.
Okay, and do you guys think, does this go back to, like psychology? There's the phase, the statement that, men act and women feel. Does that, is it more our nature to kind of nurture and want to tell stories and maybe not always feel like we have to be, at the front line? What do you guys think about that? Or
I have a quick thought on that,
Okay.
and then I'll pass it on. If you say that men act and women feel, what happens when a woman feels and acts?
you've got a star, someone doing well.
Oh,
Any thoughts?
I never
stopped it. Okay.
I don't have anything to say about
Okay.
that.
Well, what about?
I think men feel.
I think women
If you have to
And women act.
characterize, if you have to characterize, the first statement about someone, is that?
Well, I would really think that, in my experience at least, women are more open to collaboration, finding a solution, instead of
Yes.
putting up my foot down, this is how it has to be done. And I think that's what, but again, it isn't helpful to separate by gender, I feel. We're too small an industry to have to claim that, and I think
Right.
we,
Do any of you actually feel, I in my career, I've never actually felt like, oh, I'm not going to get the job because I'm a woman. I've never actually, and I have a feeling that's because of my upbringing. What about the rest of you? Do you feel this burden or this difficulty?
Not at all. But maybe I'm not thinking of it that way. I work with a lot of men that are amazing, and we help each other out, and it's such a team effort that I've never thought of gender as an obstacle. And maybe I'm naive, but
Yeah, I just don't think you can dwell on it, because if you do, then it does stop you.
Yeah.
And if you get intimidated by a room full of male executives, then your project's going to die. So you have to have big kahunas. You got to have those balls. So
As long as they don't wear suits, right? A bunch of executives in suits can be a little.
yeah, no, it is intimidating.
No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I think that the men, I work with a lot of men, and I love the men I work with. I really do, and I work with women, and I find the men more feminine than me when I'm working a lot. I remember my editor took me out to lunch one day and said, "You're more feminine than I am. You're more masculine than I am. I'm more feminine than you." I thought that was interesting, because in my life I don't feel that way. I feel very feminine, so I started to notice that maybe, So I don't think that that's really the case, but I think that your energies match each other, because women are naturally better communicators. I find men are really great at a lot of things, but I find that they're not, communication can fall short. And because I know that, I spend a lot of time communicating with the men that I work with, and because I love to communicate, I kind of dig it, I get to practice all the time, and I tell them, you're out of communication, and can you get in communication, and you're not, so I'm constantly challenging them on their communication skills, but I do it subtle in a way that doesn't come off insulting, And so I have wonderful relationships with them, and I have women I work with, and I love them too. We're more fiery. It's more heated, and with the men, it's more. But it's all. I just think, like someone was saying here, all of us. It takes. It's an industry, and if we love what we're doing and we're all doing it, we're gonna have men and we're gonna have women, and we're all gonna be working together. And we gotta get on. We gotta get along. We gotta support each other and make it happen. I'm all about perseverance, actually.
Well, this is the panel for that.
Right. Creating conversation, creating a space for ideas is always what I think is the most important thing to keep in mind, and that those ideas may come from places least expected. And a natural reaction might be to say, oh my God, they don't know what they have no idea, or this is a really not helpful idea. But if you open yourself up to it, or do the extra route to try something that doesn't seem to make sense, you may end up finding something that does. And I find also the psychology in terms of incorporating another viewpoint, and ideally, make them think it was their idea.
That's a good one.
So would you say then maybe ego is less at play with women? That it doesn't have to necessarily be your choice. Is that kind of what you were saying, or?
Well, I don't like the
Right.
the big hard border of women do this, men do that so much. So
Okay, so it's more personality.
I think so.
People's characteristics. I see a question back there.
Well, I have a statistic at the Daily Variety from 2008 that 45% of the Producers Guild is made up of women. Whether they actually get their stuff greenlit or not, I don't know, but I thought it was really interesting.
Interesting.
To get down to just the directors, not the ADs, just the directors of the DPA. It's like 25% was the statistics. So I thought that was really interesting, but I also have a really interesting philosophy about why women make such great producers in this industry. And I've often said this, I don't know if it's fact or whatever, but I think our traditional role, if you want to go back to traditional times, as mothers and wives and people that are supposed to schedule 10 different people's, basketball games, soccer games, gymnastics, that's what we do. That is our natural role as a woman if you want to go back to the basics. And I think that's why we make such great communicators and great producers, because naturally our bodies produce, period. And after it produces, we're expected to manage everything. So I really think that producing is such a natural go-to for women because of our traditional roles.
I almost wonder if the pressure of, for directors, the reason why women aren't maybe as common is, if you think about the sort of the main industry is focused on that demographic of, teenage boys from 12 to 18, right? And I think there might be, and I'm saying this is more of a pressure from the industry in general, that, people think, well, women can't maybe necessarily speak for that demographic. And I don't know if that plays into it, but it seems like when, they're constantly doing these films that are geared at that age range of males, that maybe that could have something to do with it. I don't know.
Question in the back? Good question. Does anyone have, there's certain films that are driven towards, of course there's the chick flick, and then there's date films, which,
I hate chick flicks, by the way.
I know.
I hate 'em.
What a horrible name, too, to call it a chick flick. That's kind of derogatory. It's like the men saying, well, we wouldn't want to see this film. And then, action, the tentpole films, I don't really know how it breaks out. I think the teenage boys is just, if you can hit that, you win. That's the goal. If we can get that, then everything's good.
It's not so much them as a viewing audience, but the teenage boys as people that will buy all the merch that comes along with that and follow the franchise. And if it's a comic book, buy the comic books. I think they have a lot more on the back end with merchandising and that kind of, and making money there so much as from box office.
Well, that wasn't teenage boys that went to Titanic 10 times in a row when that opened. That was definitely teenage girls, and they don't get enough credit.
But how much Titanic merchandise have you seen to buy?
I don't know, but it broke all the records at the time of box office because people were seeing it so many times. And I do think that that's sometimes maybe making films that are for women, that's not what the big studios are thinking of filling. That's kind of not as important, maybe.
Well, that also talks to, sorry, did you?
No, go.
Oh, that talks to the whole industry's changing, I believe. How we're seeing movies is changing, and I feel the statistics might change as a result, because if you only offer movies theatrical and on television, there's it's a time problem. But if you can see them everywhere, anytime, different formats, there might be a whole new market coming.
Right.
Yeah.
I'd really love to adapt a comic book, actually, to the 12 to 18-year-old boys. I think it's important for us to change the system that's out now, and I think that's a great challenge. And I personally would love to make a studio film adapting. I love comic books, so I'd love to adapt one of these comic books and make it about character and less about action. And I think that's necessary for what's out there now to change the films that we're seeing. And I don't know. I think we can have the power to do that.
I think that if you make a great film, it breaks the gender barrier, as they say.
Yeah.
I mean, a great film is, going to have, men are going to like it, women are going to like it, because it goes beyond that, it doesn't have those kinds of conditions and compartmentalizations or whatever. That's what I think.
Yeah, a great film speaks to everyone.
Yeah.
And I think people make films that they like, subjects that they like, as opposed to, I don't want to just make projects for women, I don't want to just do a romantic comedy.
I want to make a project that's so much for women that men love it too.
And it's also like which women would like it. Like I don't know if I'd go see a romantic comedy as a woman, but it's all individuals. It's less about I think it's less about gender and what people want to see.
Well, I think when you finally doing it, there is a breakthrough of gender. It's just the statistics and the getting to do it and all those and the opportunities. But when you're doing it, there's no, you don't, oh, I don't know. I always, this documentary I made, we were like, women love it. And then we were like, gay men and women love it. Okay. All right, so now men love it because it's all about loving women. And then, and then it's like, well, I think it's for this age, and then, we have this team here in Florida Film Festival from this college, UFC, and they working on it, and they do the marketing plan, and they sent it to me, and it said demographics 18 through 44, and I was like, wow, I thought it was 44 and over, So it's also silly in a way. It's like, what are we doing? We're just
you never know.
We're making stories and we're getting them out there. We love to put them in boxes, but it's not
you can't
about,
put them in boxes.
Yeah.
No.
So I don't know. I think
And that's
it's all
not
kind
our
of
role as filmmaker, hopefully, isn't to put it in a box.
yeah.
We
Meanwhile,
have to
we
be
do it obsessively,
Yeah.
but then it's like so silly. What are we doing? Why? But we still do it. I'll still be doing it tomorrow.
Question in the back?
Yes, I wondered, each of you, are there any texts, industry or otherwise, that are go-tos for you that keep you inspired? And then I'd like for each of you to maybe just speak to your creative process. I mean, at the heart of it all, you said, you're storytellers. So what inspires you? And are there any texts that you continually go back to that helps inform your work?
Sorry, did you say texts that we go back to, like books, like literature? Okay.
For inspiration?
I think that's what life's for. I think the best storytellers are people who've lived and people who've experienced.
Yeah, the reason I wanted to start telling stories is because of the stuff that I've experienced in my past, that I just had all these stories that I wanted to tell. And I have so many more that I want to tell. And it's about living and experiencing life, and less from books that you've read and more about what you see every day that you want to talk about. But there's a lot of inspirational books out there I could recommend to keep going.
I think that I was a poet for a while, and I read a lot of poetry, and I performed poetry. I think literature in general, great literature, influences me greatly, and I could go back to it or I could find something new. I don't read enough, but I read enough to know that when I read something great. And so I think that literature is amazing, and poetry, Yeats, and Bukowski, or anything that inspires you, is great. And I believe in You know, if I have a story I'm telling and I know what the source of that inspiration is, I put that on my wall. I put that on my computer screen. I put it everywhere, just to constantly be with that source and to come back to it. Because, you know, there'll be times where people will be talking in this year and telling you everything you can imagine. And you've got to learn to just like go, okay, I got this communication, or I didn't, who cares? But I know my source, and that's what it's about, and always connecting to that, whatever that is. And everybody will have different, some people it's a movie, some people it's music, you know, so, or it's all of it, you know. So, you know, yeah, I'm inspired, you know, it's the inspiration I get from other people's work that always reminds me that what I'm doing, I want to do and I love. So whatever that is, you know, so that's my thought.
And I think in order to be a filmmaker, you have to love all different types of like literature, music, everything that's out there, movies. Like you just embrace it and are always learning from it and soaking up as much as you can. Like for me personally, I have to always have Rilke's Letters to a Young Poet right by me whenever I'm getting started with a project, and I find that very inspirational. So just find whatever is there for you to keep you going and realizing why you're doing what you're doing, and you know, that's all very personal though.
Yeah, I think, you know, inspiration, obviously, it's very important that you know what inspires you, because inevitably in filmmaking, there'll be dark times and hard times, and if you can kind of go back to whether it's, you know, Emerson or, you know, or a favorite movie or somebody that just reminds you of kind of what keeps you going and why you're on this crazy journey.
Yeah, and it's also keeping an open mind to other sources, though, because, you know, when I'm working on a project, I'm very immersed in research around that subject issue or reading. Like when we were doing Brother to Brother, we read a lot of literature from the Harlem Renaissance because that was the time period. Or when I'm consulting on a film about the solar industry, suddenly I'm reading a lot about that technology and what else is out there. And it's wonderful because it allows me to immerse in very, very different worlds. But it's also important to keep kind of a leg out to what else is going on, to not get too narrowed in by that. So I think it's just trying to juggle it all.
Yeah, I think, I mean, just a quick example, when I was getting ready to do a Rick Springfield documentary, I knew very little about him. My partner Melanie knew everything, which was good. But, you know, I watched so many documentaries. I wanted to see what's out there, what's been done, you know, what's just about fans, what's, you know, so I really tried to immerse myself in that. And I mean, some of the greats, I mean, Scorsese always talks about stealing shots, whether it's from John Ford or De Sica or, you know, Quentin Tarantino, well, he stole almost all of Reservoir Dogs from a Japanese, Hong Kong filmmaker. So anyway, I saw another question pop up.
Yes. On that note, do any of you have or had women documentarian role models?
Film what?
Women documentarians, specifically documentarians who were women or were women, role models.
Barbara Koppel.
I
For
don't
me,
think I
personally?
have. I don't.
I'm not a documentarian, but I love documentary filmmaking.
Yeah, I don't necessarily have a documentarian female role model. I do watch a lot of documentaries. I don't know. Maybe Sylvia.
No, I hate to say
Sylvia,
that.
you're my.
I have my favorite docs, and I think a few of them are directed by women. Rachel and her partner, Rachel Grady. I know they did a couple that I really love, and War Dance I think was also done by a woman. For me, like everyone says, I don't so much think about gender. I think about what I loved, and then if it happens to be a woman, well, that's cool. Anyone else on the panel? Like, even forget documentaries. Is there any woman, whether it's, I mean,
Barbara Koppel.
Right, of course.
Oh yeah,
Is that where Liz Garbus is great?
Yeah.
I mean,
Is
there's
there
a
a
lot
woman?
of them
Barbara
contemporary.
Koppel is great. Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
And
sure.
Well, there's Lucy Walker who did Wasteland, and that was a wonderful film.
Yeah.
Um,
Andi, what's her name?
Yeah, Andi, who did Living in Public. We
Yep.
Live in Public, and another movie. She's great. I met her. She's a great girl. But you asked specifically if I was. Yeah, I wouldn't. I couldn't say that a female documentarian. I actually really liked like very odd documentaries. Like I think two of my favorite documentaries, I mean, I hate to say that, but two documentaries I really like that I can think of right now is Enron's Smartest Man in the Room, which is Alex Gibney. That's, I mean, but you know, and Tyson, which was that director, that fiction director. Yeah.
Paul.
No, it's not Paul. It's
No.
Tim. It's that guy who lives in New York.
Let's
Whatever.
IMDb it.
What's his name? Does
He
anybody
lives in
know?
New York and oh god.
And
All right, well, it'll come to us.
Yeah, it'll come to us.
What about, do you guys have, who are your role models? Do they happen to be women, or are they just, is it your father, you know, who are your role models? Whether it
Mother
doesn't have to be
Teresa.
industry.
No, I'm just kidding.
Some of them are women, yes. I love Lucrecia Martel's films. She's an Argentinian filmmaker. It's all over. I never actually thought about it in thinking of women versus men as role models. I love Mike Nichols' work.
Yeah. I'm even talking not just in film. I mean,
Oh.
just, you know, do we tend as women for our role models, male, masculine, or feminine, even for you guys out there? I mean, you know, if you think about something interesting in film, is that the voice of God in film, a narration, the trailer voice is always a man. Does that penetrate how we view and what we're looking, you know? I think it's about time that we had a woman do a trailer.
I want the voice
Can
of
a
God
woman
to
tell
be
us to go
played
see a
by a
movie?
woman. That's for sure. The voice of God.
Wait, Alanis Morissette was the voice of God.
In
right?
which?
Oh yeah,
Dogma?
Love her. Role models. Well, I mean, I really, you know, I can't say that most really, you know, a lot of women who are successful, from like Oprah to Hillary Clinton, you know, I love them. I will love them because of their presence. It's not like, oh, I watch Oprah because I never really did. It's like when I see her on a talk show, she emanates something that's to be admired, you know, whether I like her show or not. She's admirable, you know. And, you know, Hillary Clinton is admirable because, like, what she does, right? And when I see her, I mean, you know, she's not that charismatic, but she's really a survivor. She's come a long way through and gone through so much and somehow stayed on top, and that's admirable to me, you know, somebody who survived, a woman who gets through all that. So, I mean, and I should be able to think of more because anyone...
I just saw a documentary featuring Erin Brockovich, which was also made into a feature a long time ago, but I just saw one with her recent work, and I, you know, that's a big inspiration for me, somebody being persistent on an issue and keep working at it years and years, and going to community meeting after community meeting and keeping it together, and, you know, that's the kind of perseverance that inspires me. And
I like Annie Leibovitz. I mean, I like her work, you know.
Patti Smith.
Oh, wonderful. Well, there's tons of
I had to say the obvious.
singers that I love.
Oh, yeah.
From, you know, I mean, female singers are heaven, let's face it. Heaven, you know.
Well, also the thing with Patti is like her poetry and her inspiration to keep going. She has a lot of that I keep on the wall, like just that flick. There's this article that she had in O Magazine, actually, about that flicker and not getting rid of that passion that you always had in the beginning when you were a kid, and always coming back to that light to keep you going and realize why you're doing the stuff you're doing, and that's very inspirational. There's a lot of that out there.
All right, great. We had a question?
How do you measure success for yourself?
Oh, good question.
That's a great question.
it's a great question. What you had measure success by what you had to give up in order to get there, kind of.
I measure success by being here right now. I'm on a women's panel for perseverance. That's pretty...
I think getting to do what you love, that's success to me. That I don't work, that I do what I love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when it's not considered work and it's considered love, yeah.
Did you mean personal success like that, or did you mean the success of the work? Because I feel I would agree with everything, you know, just being here and being able to do what we love. But it becomes an issue when you're making a film, especially getting funding, It's like, oh, how is this film going to do? What is, how can this film succeed? And that is a big issue. And you've got to prove it more and more ahead of time. Like, what is the market you're talking to? What is it going to do? How can we get our money back? Or how can we do an impact? Even social issue documentaries now have to prove, like, what is the impact that this film is going to have? And how can you prove that ahead of time? It's
Yeah,
kind of
that's actually great, Sabine. Did I say your name right, by the way? Okay, good. I just want to say that I think that that's really an interesting point, because at least my experience is that you'll go through the expectations, or the people around you will have told me a lot how I'm never going to succeed, and all the reasons why, and very good reasons why, if you look in the box, if you're in the box. And I think that you really have to be strong in the face of that, and that's why going back to source is important. Because you have to always go back to the source and why you're doing it, so you can go through that, those things. And I think the success is really getting through that, and new people will show up, and then it's your sales agents, your distributors, everybody will tell you how, oh, it's not a theatrical film, oh, it's not, it's not going to make money. Oh, when I started making a documentary 6 years ago, everyone said, oh, it's a terrible thing, don't make a documentary. By the time I finished, oh, documentaries are really in. You'll just hear all this negation and why you shouldn't do it. Yeah, and it'll go on and never stop. So you have to constantly just go and I think that that's really, when you can just keep going in the face of that and keep your source and your strength, that's, to me, success.
Yeah. Who in the audience works in the industry in some way? Just curious to get a... Okay, because a lot of people don't even know, I mean, those who don't, that most films take years to make, and not just documentaries. I mean, I worked on a whole bunch of long-term documentaries where it took like 5 to 6 years to follow the subjects, but also narrative films. Sometimes a script gets written 10, 15 times, takes 4 years to be even read by the person who ends up making it.
And years to find a home, to get distribution. So it is, I think, good to think a little bit about the commercial viability of a project. It shouldn't be the driving force if this is what you do as a passion, but at least if you can kind of figure out what your audience is maybe, and then you kind of know who you're playing to a little bit, but you don't really want to limit it because you try to do something broad. Yes, question?
Oh, I was just wondering, by the way, this is a great conversation. Is the changing face of sort of distribution, marketing, a window of opportunity for women to jump in because the system is changing a little bit, social networking. So is the change
Doesn't work.
It's not a...
distribution, marketing, and business in any way helpful for women to sort of capitalize on? I mean,
Right.
it is,
There
the
you go.
business has been very patriarchal. I mean, those who set the marks, the goals, script writing, the important positions that determine who the jobs will go to have been very entrenched in sort of male-dominated world. But I wonder if there's something happening right now in the market. It is getting tougher with the recession and funding. I'm a documentary filmmaker. It's harder for me. But also, I find it, maybe because I live in New York, it's a small industry, that I tend to be able to talk to people much more. It's a closer knit circle now with sort of communication having, it's much easier to stay in touch with people. I wonder if there's room anywhere there for women to capitalize on being good communicators and being able to forward and pitch their work. And what do you think personally? What's been your experience?
I think that it's changing, for sure. Apparently fast. Everybody sort of seems to be generating or fixing themselves to a new model. They don't even know what's going on. Everybody's nervous and trying to catch up or shift. And is there a bigger opportunity for women in that shift? That's a good question. I think that there's a good opportunity for anybody who can be with it and keep going and, you know, not get derailed or you know, afraid. But I don't know. I mean, that's a good question. I'll open it up to the panel, or because I don't know exactly the answer to that.
I think you still have to kind of separate sort of mainstream, like large Hollywood versus independent. And I think that the world of independent is definitely changing, not just because of marketing issues, but just because of the changing technology, that it's a lot cheaper to make movies. Our access to equipment is a lot cheaper, and when you cut out a big part of your budget because you're not spending so much money on film and film processing and 35 cameras, it allows access to people. And I think in that sense, it is opening it up. The technology is opening it up, and then that's just, but again, for independent, that's not so much for the, you know, because I think in major.
But I'm going to add in that, but people
Yeah.
are also watching movies differently.
Yeah.
Where they're going, how they're watching it is completely shifting,
Yeah.
which shifts all the positions from the filmmakers to the producers to the distributors to everybody. So, but anyway, keep going. I just want how they're watching it is different.
Oh yeah, no, I agree.
And social media, I think now maybe more than ever, it's about a brilliant idea. YouTube has no idea what gender you are or what nationality or minority you might be. If you put something brilliant out, like maybe never before, you don't need the approval of an executive to put something on YouTube. Now, you do need a heck of a marketing pizzazz and somehow get your thing out there and seen by millions, but that's completely open. I think that's gender irrelevant, you know, and minority irrelevant as well. So I think, yes, in some ways, even, you know, other social media, Facebook and all of that, that's a little more gender, you know, because your picture's up there. But I think YouTube offers some really interesting.
And it goes back to the power of community, I believe, because we have the power to create our own community by, you know, do you listen to the New York Times or do you listen to your friends when you decide what to watch? You know, I mean, I probably a little bit of both, but what are the channels that you allow information, and how can we create them? How can we create networks that are reliable sources of doing things, you know, and also supporting each other?
Were any of you mentored? I mean, did any of you feel like you had a really strong woman, not just a woman, but just someone that really kind of took you in and mentored you a bit? Yes? Lauren, you want to?
Yes, completely. And when I went to film school, that was a huge community of resources, and all my professors have been amazing mentors to me that are all in the industry right now, that are all making films right now. Eric Mendelsohn, Tom Kalin, Kathryn Diekman. I could go on. They're all amazing people, and they really helped me through the landscape of what's out there right now, and continue to do that even though I've graduated.
Okay.
I definitely have had many mentors. I think having a mentor is really important. I really do. I think having a great mentor is, you know, one of the best educations you can get. Of course, school and everything else is good, doing it. And my mentors have been, Bert Stern has been a mentor, and Terry George, director, writer, a little bit Jim Sheridan, and I had a female mentor named Sarah Sugarman, a filmmaker. Just those, you know, I can go on, but definitely.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great, because mentors, I think in this country, we've kind of, in all industry, not just in film, it seems like we've gone away from it. And in other countries, I think they're still mentoring a little bit more. So that's encouraging.
Yeah, and then also sharing your knowledge with people and engaging and mentoring other filmmakers. Right?
That's what it's all about.
All right, any more questions? Yes.
Say a person wanted to get into the film industry and for some reason did not want to go to film school. Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Say a person wanted to get into the industry, didn't want to go to film school, just wanted to go out there and do it, grab a camera, GoPro, FS100, whatever, and just want to go.
Sure.
What resources, other than obviously mentorship or maybe social media, would be a great resource for them to just get started? Just watching films, or would it go further than that?
Women in film.
I was just going to say that.
Women in film is a great resource. Community,
Independent
finding a community that reaches out to you where you're not. I mean, that's really what film school is that community. And if you can find that outside where you don't have to pay tons of money, then
Internships.
Yeah, very important. Did you guys, I know a few of you, did everyone here graduate from college for film?
Nope.
No.
I didn't. Well,
I went to
did?
grad school for
You
film.
did?
Yeah, I did too.
I started in biochemistry, and then I left, and
Yeah.
then I ended up graduating in theater. So yeah, kind of, but not really.
My undergrad was in science, computer science.
Okay.
So it was
I did a lot of schooling.
Okay.
In-
Schooling's good.
Yeah, schooling, but I didn't go to a proper university, 4-year or 6-year, or whatever it is. 2-year, 4-year, I think.
Yeah.
Um,
Different strokes for different folks, and yeah, there's definitely ways. And being at a festival,
I
talking
would-
to people.
I also, if you are, like, I loved, as I started working, like doing, I live in California, so I have UCLA, and I do, like, night courses there, like 1 night a week, 2 nights a week, 6 to 9. And, if you don't mind just putting in a couple hours of schooling a week, it was fantastic. And they have some, I don't know, I'm sure they have great people here. They have great people there. And so you could also do it like that. And a mentor, great mentor.
a mentor and watching movies is your film school.
Yeah.
Like watching movies and breaking them down and really analyzing them and what you like and.
And don't just watch movies from the 80s forward. Watch the black and whites, the silence, especially the black and whites, the great
Casablanca.
American era of film and
Watch
big Hollywood.
Casablanca.
And so I guess we have 2 questions here and then one back there, so I guess we can start here.
One suggestion that I might make, there's so many nonprofit organizations that need PSA spots and in-home videos to use for their marketing. And I have an opportunity right now, if you're interested.
All right.
See, this is how it happens.
But
Jump
it's
right
a way
away.
to develop your skills, and especially if it's something that can then go to YouTube and get promotion, you get your name out there. An idea.
There you go, film
Yeah.
festivals.
Get on sets.
Yeah.
Yeah. And interning, really even just doing a few days, helping out, and yeah. Did you see the Yeah, she's coming too. Oh, you haven't.
Hi, I'm Nicole, and I'm an entertainment attorney here in town. And one of the things that I've noticed is I've had women call me, and even if I don't have sort of a time slot available for them in the very, very near future, they'll say, well, I want a woman attorney. They know how to speak to me. They know what I need, yada, yada, yada. I was wondering if any of you sort of gravitated more towards men or towards women for your support staff or crew in developing the features or the shorts that you've done so far.
I look at it's all about talent and working with people that you're willing to want to spend 15 hours with on a daily basis that you're not going to want to punch afterwards. So if you can stand them for that long and they're really talented, then it doesn't really matter what sex they are.
It's all about the chemistry you have together in terms of communication. To be able to really discuss things and open up and.
Yeah, that's the most important thing, the chemistry.
Yeah.
I had both men and women. I find that they both have big assets and strengths and whatever. I don't want to say weaknesses, but we all have strengths and weaknesses, so I will. And so I've gravitated towards both, but I've had a lot of women. Like I have a woman producer on this one. I had a woman producer on my last film, and my first film was all women, and there was one man who was Terry George, and he's like a big director, producer, and he was my AD as a favor. And the poor guy, like, he was around so many women, he got eaten up alive. And he's a really strong man, And he's just like, when we all got together, it was like a nightmare, It was like female power, But I don't, necessarily say that was good. It's a film that never got anywhere, but it was fun. I had a lot of fun, just that bonding, that. But I believe that you just, like you said, find who's talented. and you want to work with, and is best for that job, you know, like when you're, whatever it is, who suits it.
Yeah, you mentioned that the individual is more of an indicator of how somebody can work with somebody else rather than gender. But if you talk about the overall models that are in the industry, you mentioned a little bit earlier maybe the large commercialized model doesn't appeal to a female aesthetic because of the formulas that already exist. But since those formulas are largely masculine, even, you know, the chick flick you mentioned is pretty much a masculine construction of what a female should enjoy in a movie. Do you feel like there's any impetus or any social responsibility for women to take control of that industry that is not necessarily representing us accurately?
Yes.
I would agree. Yeah, how? Let's all plot. No, lock the doors. We're not leaving until we figure out how. Because yes, I do think more women's roles, you know, where women are playing the lead role in challenging, unconventional ways, and we're getting more of that. I mean, but you know, when we all think about the great actresses, it's like Meryl Streep, and yeah, there's a bunch of others, but there aren't that many great roles. So, what do you guys think? How do we? Let's.
I think we should plan a film right now. Send it to the studio and say we're gonna do it.
Right.
We're going back and writing a film this afternoon by tomorrow morning.
We'll give it to the studio. They'll have to greenlight it.
I have an idea.
We were all started on this panel in Florida Film Festival, and
Hey,
now we've got this film.
Yeah.
Check it out, man.
But yes, no, I think absolutely. We, you know. Okay, that was just a tough one.
Just a tiny story to that, because a friend of mine is a German writer, and she discovered, and going back to an earlier comment, like she read a newspaper article about a woman, Anna Valentinowicz, who was involved with the Polish union Solidarność, and found out while she was researching her that it was actually Anna who got the people to strike, not Lech Walesa, who in response became president and also... So she wrote a screenplay that won numerous awards and got eventually made into a film by Volker Schlöndorff. But that was just starting with a little article and creating a different image of a female that the world just didn't know about. You know, actually, it wasn't even an article on her. Sorry, it was just a photograph that she then investigated further and found out all these things.
We had a question down here.
Oh, there's a man.
Oh, sorry. You'll be next. Oh, yes. Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, in terms of some possible experience, the local chapter of the Florida Motion Picture and Television Association is having a program in May where you make a 3-minute to 7-minute film, and you've got 45 hours to do it approximately from Friday night till Sunday morning. And you have a topic that you're given Friday night, and you have a team that goes out and makes this 3 to 7 minute film. And then, in addition, you have a mentoring group that will help you in suggestions in making that film. And it's coming up in May, and you'll also qualify for Crystal Reel Awards and recognitions in those awards that come up next year as well. And that's the FMPTA.org, where you can get more information about being involved in that.
That's great. Yeah, there's a lot of things like that happening. I think almost most states now. All right, and you had a question.
I teach a class called Images of Women in Film at the University of Central Florida, and I was just wondering if you all had heard the concept of like the male gaze.
Tell us about it.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit. Can we get her?
If you guys have heard about it, I just wanted to.
I have not heard about it. Has everybody
It's a
here
great
heard about
essay.
the male gaze?
Yes.
Take the.
Basically, the male gaze is centered around the idea of desire, and most films are made by heterosexual men, and the films reflect sort of this unconscious desire to possess this woman. Usually there's a male that's active, and then the woman is passive. The man is usually driving the story. And then once they possess the woman, they pretty much take over any power that's perceived by them. It goes back to Freud and the idea
I was
of
just
like
gonna say, it sounds like
women.
Freud.
Yeah, men have a penis and women don't, and so because
What?
the men are afraid of that. simple way to differentiate the two. Very simplistic, but
because that's in
basically-
marketing, as almost everything, marketing in particular. So follows that.
And so it just argues this idea that men have this fear of castration when they see a woman, and so they overly glamorize the woman, fetishize them, make them look beautiful, and so really they're really seen as the objects of desire, and it's the men who are doing the active part of the desiring, and the women are actually just receiving the desire, and they desire to be desired, but they're never actually usually presented as like full beings. And so they've sort of perpetuated the gaze because they enjoy to be looked at. And it's the idea of, every film is voyeuristic in the sense that we enjoy watching these people. So, but, and the only way to really get away from that is counter cinema, which is to deconstruct cinema and stories, and I don't really know how you get around it. I've never.
I think in the action films, there's been a big movement to have female roles who are sort of kick-ass, doesn't need the guy. I mean, I remember studying that in grad school too, and I think that there's been a lot of change with that specific issue of powerless women, and I don't think they even use that formula as much anymore in action films, really.
Or even in Disney movies, like
Yeah.
the last two princess movies they just made.
They're
very much
yeah. Yeah, they're very active and they're not passive.
Even in action films, though, like they usually dress the women in very like scantily clad
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't get that. Cops and female cops in heels and short skirts. That
But they can
always throws me a little.
But they can still save the day. They can still save the men. Yeah.
Yeah, they can save the day, but it's just a movie. They can't really do that in life.
Girl with the dragon tattoo.
Yeah, Swedish
Swedish
right?
films. Yeah, you got to look outside America.
There are also women that are using the knowledge of this male gaze to have control over the men. They use this knowledge of it and how men react to them, and they can manipulate that and use that to have power. And you really see that shift in a lot of women in the 50s and Marilyn Monroe, things like that, that have the knowledge to use that to have the control and power.
Yeah.
Then you have to worry about what you're wearing and your makeup. But good points. Yeah.
The more things change, the more they stay the same. Because I graduated from film school in '94 and was on a plane coming back, and Speed had shown Sandra Bullock's Breakout, and the people behind me said, "Oh, great film!" and Keanu Reeves and Sandra. I'm like, okay, so if he was in a skimpy T-shirt and tied up, and would you? And they looked at me like, no one talked to me for the rest of the flight. Like, what are you talking about? Because enjoying and not deconstructing, and none of my friends want to watch movies with me anymore because they go, now, why did they do that shot? And well, if they had done this, and so I have to learn to keep my mouth shut. But my question is, if money was not an object, well, to enjoy films with my friends, or else I go alone. If money were not an object or distribution concerns, what films would you each make?
I would make exactly what I'm making now. Money's not an object for me, or distribution. I mean, it only is because it's opposed onto me, but it's not an object for me. So that's how I feel about it. I fight relentlessly to tell everybody that I'm not making this movie for those purposes, but there is a little surrender and give and take, but it's still my movie. It's still the content. It's still, I still did it based on all those things. Yeah, I don't.
We do have total freedom.
Yeah, I mean, I really think in this, I can understand if you had a $30 million budget or a $100 million budget, I don't know, that it would change. You'd have to really be concerned about things like money and who's watching it and commercialism, which would be kind of a drag, But maybe to be fun, maybe to be a challenge, you take that on and go, God, I gotta,
And you can change those movies that are out there now.
Yeah, you can like do a little marriage of what your ideas and being original and what they want and kind of.
There are a lot of filmmakers out
pray
there.
It makes money and you get another job.
There are filmmakers out there that do both their passion projects and commercial projects, like Gus Van Sant.
But it's almost because they have the commercial project.
Yeah,
I'd love
true.
to say I do exactly the same as I am doing now, and the honest truth is I wouldn't. I would still do documentaries. The last 2 docs I did I'm very proud of, and they were great years of my life, but you know, there's a fiction film I wrote that I just needed $3 to $5 million, and yeah, that's the film I would do. And you know, thinking about getting that film made, it's written for a young, well, not so young, but late 20s female. It's a total female protagonist, very strong. So I'm thinking, well, I got to cast the female, and that's how I get the money. So unfortunately, commerce, you know, unless you have a wealthy husband, which we're not really those women, and you know, you do have to worry about how to balance life, rent, all that kind of stuff, which has to come into play. And I know that a lot of my dedication at times in marketing and getting a film made, the hours that I should be spending are like thinking, well, I've been doing this, and now I have to start focusing about what's going to bring money in. You know, you can't just do the passion project. So I'd love to have a real hit, and then I could just do passion projects, but. Yeah. Oh, sorry, I'm all over.
Can I just add one more thing? I do feel there's a need for more money to finance films, though. In Europe, there's a little bit more money through state funding. Actually, films are subsidized, at least in Germany. Here, you really, the sources, and it's getting worse and worse. The sources of getting things financed are drying up, and we do need more investors. We do need more organizations and more support for independent films. It's yeah.
This is the worst country, probably. I know in Germany it's very good.
Mm.
I want to.
I
wish I had a German citizenship, but. Okay. Yes.
Hello. I was wondering, like, when you're inspired to make a movie, what is that initial step that you take to actually start filming, or what do you do that certain thing that you do to actually, you know, go with it?
Are you saying the first step?
Yeah, I mean, like, what
From
do
idea,
you do?
from
No, no,
idea, or
yeah, when you want to start the movie, when you actually want to go out, and is there a certain thing that you do? Like,
You mean before the script's written?
Huh?
Before the script's written?
Yeah, like what you have, like, I want to do this. There's this story that I want to do. What is the first step that you
Write
do?
it.
Yeah.
Just write it. Just, I mean, you can put it off forever and be like, I have this idea, I just can't, but you have to get it down. You have to just write it, even if it's just messy, you know, because the first draft's always messy. But just, that's the first step, is to get it down on
And baby
paper.
steps are fine. Like, don't let that scare you. The thought of, I got to write a 100-page script, just write it on note cards. I mean, the first thing I ever wrote was I wrote on note cards, paper towels, and bars, and a notebook, you know, so just start. The act of starting will help you get to the finish.
And in if you're talking documentary, it might be a very wounded road. For example, Katja Esson, who I consult on and also edit some of her work, one of her films, Skydancer, started out as a film about iron workers in Manhattan. And then she found these characters who are Native Americans living in Akwesasne, 6 hours away, which they commute every week. And in order to get their trust to become subjects of her film, she had to actually do the 6-hour commute for a couple of years. Many times driving 6 hours to just have tea with somebody is kind of a commitment. And she did that. I mean, the film took 5 years to make, and until they invited her numerous times just to come up. So it's like getting the trust of your subjects sometimes is a big part of the film. You know.
Yeah, I shot from the time I came up with the idea of the documentary to probably a year later. I showed up with the camera, and I turned it on a photographer who'd never been, shot before, photographed before, with a video camera, a little $300, before DV, and I said, I'm making a documentary about you. And I actually shot him for a year before I figured out what to do next. And I had all this film, and then I started writing a script. It's a little different than a fiction script. It's and I ended up doing cards, and it just kept changing and changing and changing. Documentaries, things change a lot. A lot is editorial, and I'm editors are worth their weight in gold in documentaries, boy, you know. So you know, there's that way too, is to just go and do it. And it's kind of a backwards way, but it's very doable if you're, you know, and people do it like that, a lot of people. So.
But don't you think just the action of doing something will make? Because if you do nothing and you just plan,
don't
and
do
talk
nothing.
and you
Whatever you
have
do,
meetings,
do not do nothing.
especially a doc, just shoot something. You know, shoot
the
something
wall.
and write a
Shoot the
scene and
Yeah,
get some
or-
actors to read it. At least it's something. You've accomplished something.
Yeah, even if it's a fiction film, like just write, like what you're saying, just write a scene, get a camera, get two people together, and just see how it plays out. Just always be shooting.
Yeah, developing
your story. Even if it's not, you don't have to put all that pressure on yourself to be like, this is the finished product, I need to get this out there. But just constantly reworking your material is really important.
All right, I'm being told we have one more question. This went really fast. I was worried. I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay.
Last question. When you're making a film, what do you find the hardest part to do? The casting, the filming, the editing, the script writing, finding locations?
Raising the money.
Besides money, because we already discussed that.
Every step. Every step is hard.
It's a roller coaster.
Yeah.
That never
But it's exciting
ends.
too.
Exciting too.
It's exciting, it's hard, it's a challenge, it's rewarding when you do it. But every single step of the way is rewriting the film, which I find very fascinating.
And for me, with a doc, it's almost, what do you cut? You fall in love with so many wonderful people you meet along the way and great gems of scenes within themselves, and then because it doesn't advance the greater picture of the movie, you have to lose them, and that's brutal.
And then they get mad at you.
Right.
First they won't be in your film, then they hate you for not putting you in their film.
Right.
Give you the extras.
Yeah, and then there's always logistical problems and stuff depending where you're filming and if you're dealing with actors and fiction. And what about you?
But it's so special to see your film for the first time in front of an audience that you haven't invited personally.
That's
So
not
I
the
must
hardest
say,
part.
I mean, for me, one of the most beautiful moments is seeing a film premiere at a festival, first or second screenings, before any reviews have come out, and then going into the ladies' room and hearing what people really think. I love that.
You always find out in the ladies' room what they really think.
It's a great place.
You want to sneak
Then
in
you know
and wear
if
a
you
hat.
have something.
That's a great place to meet people, in the ladies' room.
Yeah. I had some
At
great
film
easier.
festivals.
Yeah, I had some great conversations at Sundance with people in the bathroom line.
Yeah.
I know that's a plus for women. We meet women in bathrooms or in line. Men
Because our
don't
lines
really
are so
talk to
long.
men in bathrooms, so
Yeah, that's true.
you can hand a card a lot easier for a woman in a bathroom.
And if they like your film, they'll always tell you on the bathroom line. You know, yeah.
So drink a lot of water or beer and then go to the bathroom.
Keep going to the bathroom.
Yes.
Thank God they only ever put 2 toilets in
I
there.
Go
think
to the
we have to
bathroom as
wrap
much
it
as you
up.
can.
So thank you everyone for coming. Thanks so much to this panel. You guys are great. Thank you. And thanks everyone. Go see lots of films. See Shannah's film today at 3:30. It's a beautiful film. Bert Stern, original Madman, and it's at the Regal. So that's 3:30. You have lots of time. You can have lunch at the Enzion, and then you can head over. I don't think anyone. Yeah. Okay.
Anybody else?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Let's thank our panel one more time for joining us today. Thank you so much.